Hey guys, Shouldoge here. Today we are looking at the UnusualWaySports Neko. While it's unclear when UnusualWaySports started releasing their products, the earliest I could find on them was late August of 2024. This pad is supposed to be a balanced surface with a bias toward control, which after testing does fit that description. I bought this pad from the official UnusualWaySports store on AliExpress in 490 by 420, which is the only size it comes in as of right now. Now, moving on to the surface, looking at a macro shot, the surface weave of the Neko is very loose, making for a soft feel on the surface, but still manages to keep its integrity and consistency in following a pattern with its weave. The surface overall feels very smooth with the lightest texture to it, though this texture feels very soft and doesn't irritate my arm or palm in any regard. I would say the mousepad I can compare the Neko to the most would be the Razer Gigantus V2. While the Razer Gigantus V2 is a bit more textured than the Neko, these two pads behave very similarly in terms of frictional values and even feel with the Neko, just feeling more smooth and soft than the Gigantus. I will say the frictional values stay very consistent and balanced with one another, as the static friction doesn't feel any higher than the dynamic friction and keeps its frictional values when speeding up your movements. It is a very nice experience and makes for a sort of all-rounder experience with a leniency toward more controlled movements. The stopping power has been very optimal on this surface, as the soft micro texture allows you to plant your palm and fingers into the surface when you need to, and with the X soft base you can always press into the surface to increase that amount of stopping power. There is certainly a difference in the X and Y axis, as the Y axis feels a good bit more textured than the X axis, but also the Y-axis is moderately faster than the X-axis, which also makes this pad most optimal for horizontal aim-based games like CS or Valorant. While testing this pad, I have to say I was very impressed with its humidity and sweat resistance. I didn't feel the surface slow down as the humidity in my room increased from closing my door, and I haven't felt my movements been slowed at all during tense situations while gaming. I would only call the Neko pad sleeve usable, as it works decently well with my Pulsar ES and GamerSupps sleeve, but not so much any other of the other sleeves I own, including UnusualWaySports Neko sleeve, ironically enough. The surface of the Neko is a bit harder to maintain, as with the soft texture and looser surface weave, it's very easy for hairs and small debris to get caught up in it, which you may have to pick out with tweezers or your fingernails rather than being able to just brush it off. And here's an audio clip with Magic Ice dot skates to show what it may sound like gliding across in person. Now, moving on to the base, the material the base of the Neko consists of is listed as an Anoa Poron polyurethane, which is identical to the one used in the ATK Levi, which I reviewed last week. It is listed as X-Soft, but in my opinion falls more somewhere between X-Soft and Soft. The base doesn't have a sticky quality to it, and overall actually feels a bit more on the dry side, though it's apparent that this isn't the only impacting factor in adherence on this base. The thickness of the entire base measures to 4.4 millimeters when measuring with digital calipers. The base is more on the plush side, as there is certainly a natural comfort when I'm resting my arm on the pad, but it's not too much to the point where any weight placed on the mouse will make it sink, meaning you can still use dot skates on this pad as long as you have enough. The base feels maybe a tad softer than LGG's soft series bases, and a good bit softer than Artisan's soft style bases. Like the ATK Levi, I had suspicions of this base adherence being more on the weak side when I was first using it, but the base does just seem to take a bit more work before it is fully able to adhere to the surface, so just be patient. I don't have any concerns with it getting less adherent over time, and you can always spray some water between the base and the desk to temporarily increase its adherence. The elasticity of the base is quite plush, and I really like it doesn't take too much effort to press in, but still provides a stable surface to glide across. The rebound isn't the fastest I've experienced, but it is fairly strong, and I imagine if they used a full Poron base for this pad, the rebound properties of this pad would be much stronger. As I stated earlier, I do feel like dot skates are still usable on the surface, as I've been using the Magic Ice dot skates on mine, and I don't have any big issues with it evening out. Moving on to the stitching, similar to the stitching of the ATK Levi, but maybe a little bit less fuzzy, it looks quite separate from the rest of the pad. especially with its solid pink color, which makes it stand out while still matching well with the rest of the color scheme. It does not mesh with the rest of the base and much rather behaves like its own part of the pad. The stitching is certainly a bit more firm than the rest of the base, and unfortunately doesn't quite even out with the rest of the surface when pressing down on it. The stitching falls slightly below the surface, enough to the point where you won't feel your mouse cross over the edge with dot skates. Moving on to quality, the surface is not coated and doesn't feel any different from when I first used it. There aren't any spots on the surface of the Neko that changes speed either. The printing quality is very nice, the edges look very sharp and the art looks very nice looking at the surface. The heat treatment process doesn't feel too intense in any regard, as I don't get any of that sticky feeling that I would get with more other poorly heat treated surfaces. There isn't much discretion between how the Neko is described and how it actually performs, as the surface seems to match the controlled balance properties stated in the description. There is a logo on the top left corner of the pad that is printed into the design, so it won't actually have any impact on performance. The surface weave isn't perfectly aligned with the edges, but is well aligned enough to the point where you won't notice it unless you look really close. Now, moving on to the base quality, the surface does feel a bit bumpy when gliding across it, but I feel this is more of a design choice rather than a quality control mistake. The dimensions are even and none of the edges stick out, but it is worth noting that the dimensions come to a little under 49 centimeters and a little over 42 centimeters. The base is consistently the same plushness all the way around the pad. Moving on to the stitching is fairly even, which is especially important for a pad like this that has colored stitching rather than clear or black stitching. The implementation for the stitching overlap is very clean and is placed directly on the bottom right corner, oddly enough, and has very minimal fraying or quality issues. While the stitching is more on the fuzzy or loose side, I don't have any concerns with it fraying over time where you'd place your arm, as I can't see any indication of that on the copy that I've been using. Moving on to customer experience, the customer service for UnusualWaySports is a bit tricky. As far as I can tell, their customer service is run by one person who can be a bit hard to reach, as last time I tried messaging them, they took a day to respond, and as of the time of recording this video, I sent them a message 2 days ago that they have yet to respond to. For the message, they did answer though, and from the other experiences I've gathered, UnusualWaySports seems to be very kind and patient with its customers, making sure they're satisfied with their product at the end of the day. Their community is decently active, but I would call it more of a media presence than a community. While UnusualWaySports is fairly active on their Twitter or X account, they don't have a Discord or other community platform that you can join, which means you'll have to ask either customer support or other customers about their products. The purchasing experience was fairly easy, as UnusualWaySports has very quick shipping rates on AliExpress, as most of my products I order from them come in no later than a week and a half when I order them. I'm not quite sure how the purchasing experience is on Max Gaming or other official vendors. Moving on to the price, the UnusualWaySports Neko mousepad totaled to just around $34 with shipping when purchased from the official store on AliExpress, and it is worth noting that the price does include coupons used. It comes packaged rolled up in a box, which is not my preference, but on the other hand, at least it had a box and wasn't just wrapped in plastic. It did not come with any other accessories, and the pad is very well worth the price and is easily considerable to be steal value. I would go as far as to say this would be one of my top recommendations for sub $40 mouse pads, along with the heavy BP Chen. In conclusion, I would recommend this pad to someone who is looking for the smoothest control experience you can find on a budget pad, and I would give it a rating of 91 out of 100, and I will certainly be buying from UnusualWaySports again. And with all that being said, thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.